Hello everyone, welcome to Breaking Even with Al Paton on your official SuperCoach AFL podcast feed. Heading into round 20, I am your host Al Paton, back after a couple of weeks off with my good friends. Chloe, welcome. Thanks for hosting in my absence. Did a great job, but sorry I've pushed you back over there for this week.
That's okay, back in my usual spot on the couch. Happy to be here.
And Patch, fresh from the people's pan.
G'day. I've had a sizzle and I'm delighted to be here. Good to have you back, Al.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. Leave a review. We love your feedback. Just obviously not a whole lot of time left in the season, but we'll take on board anything that people say, and obviously lots of discussion about what we might be able to do next year. So get that in. And of course, SuperCoach Plus is still there for SuperCoach finals in leagues, which start next week for most leagues. So, valuable tools in there. So remember to jump onto SuperCoach Plus. Not that many trades around for most people this week, but some people do still have some. We've got some very interesting stats about that. I would say insane, actually. When we get to those, some good captains intel that, of course, is more important than ever. We'll reveal some rogue trades and answer some of your curly questions. But first, every Supercoach knows managing injuries is the key to success. This is the Injury Report, proudly brought to you by HBF, your health dream team. Thankfully, this week a lot shorter than it was that you guys had to deal with when I was away. Just a few names here of interest. Connor Rozee, missed last week, is a test to come back in the showdown with his hand. So I guess we'll find out later in the week, but I think probably more likely than not, hopefully Rozee will play this week. Jason Horne-Francis was TBF on the TBC, I should say, on the injury list last week, but he's now down to for 6 weeks, so that rules him out from a Supercoach point of view, and I would say for the power as well. And Dan Rioli's out for 4 to 6 weeks, which is a crippling blow for my draft side, but I'm not sure if it affects too many other people in Classic.
Tom Stewart, for those who jumped on board, was subbed out of the Cats game with a knee injury, and they'll keep an eye on him this week. He's listed down as available, but, certainly can't rest anybody. Keep an eye out there for Tom Stewart owners. Will Day is available with a foot, to the joy of Hawthorn supporters everywhere. And for those still with Cooper Simpson, he's a test this week. And with Matthew Johnson out of the Dockers side, maybe he comes straight back in at AFL level.
Definitely good for those who held Cooper Simpson all the way through that injury, but not such great news coming out of Carlton. It's not necessarily an injury, but Sam Docherty has announced his retirement effective after this week's games. If you have him, you can get one more game out of him, but hopefully you have a trade to move him on after that.
The HBF Injury Report for your heart this week.
Yes, very much so.
Down at Carlton. You were down there yesterday, Chloe. What was the mood like?
Yep, he seems like he's ready to hang up the boots and move on. So he always wanted to retire of his own accord. So it's great that he did get to do that. But yeah, disappointing for Supercoach owners, but more so we're just, so grateful that he was able to come back so many times from so many setbacks. So thanks, Doc, for all the Supercoach points and for an amazing career. Yeah,
absolutely. That is a wrap on this week's Injury Report. Thanks to HBF. Make the smart move. Join HBF, your health dream team. A couple of quick shout-outs before we get into the show, obviously, to the guys for caring, filling in while I was away. I did bump into some Supercoach fans on my trip far and wide. I did a bit of hiking up in WA, and I found someone at Darwin Airport come and said hello. And then someone wanted a selfie when I was doing a hike in Piccaninny Creek in the Bungle range.
There you go.
So you can't escape Supercoach. It follows you everywhere.
Did you have your Supercoach hat on at the time? Or?
No, I didn't. But they obviously recognised me from the yeah, that's right. From the Code Sports YouTube channel. Obviously, must have been watching on there. And of course, did want to mention too that the good folks at Champion Data were very kind enough to let Chloe and myself a bit of behind the scenes look on the weekend at how they actually gather the stats in the box at the MCG, then back at the bunker, the Nerve Centre back in South Bank as well, which is pretty incredible actually, to just watch it all in action. And I don't think I'll ever doubt Champion Data again in terms of potentially missing any stats. It's just insane the level of scrutiny and sort of science that goes into it. But preparing some content around that, so keep an eye out for that, some videos and writing up an article on how that all works. But great to it was a great opportunity, and thanks to the guys at Champion for letting us in. And I think, Pat, you had a shout out as well?
Yeah, I wanted to shout out the Phantoms Lair for being so welcoming with with their video reviews. I'd been calling for them for a few weeks, and I'd happily sent one in, and they were so welcoming and lovely about it. So just a shout out to both them, and as Chloe mentioned, Sam Docherty retired which was tragic for Supercoaches that own him, tragic for Carlton fans everywhere, even more tragic for me personally, who traded him in my keeper league minutes before he announced his retirement. Literally minutes.
Minute, yeah.
So we won't dwell on it, but just thought I'd shout that out, that sometimes just blunders happen and there's nothing you can do about it. So just shouted that out.
Well, we're talking Supercoach Classic really here, and the next segment is Rogue Traders, and that probably counts as one, I think.
It was the roguest of trades.
Maybe you got something else in the deal, though, surely.
Well, I got some draft picks, but I let Darcy Parish go, and it's a whole thing. We're not gonna unpack that here.
So, yeah, I just had a quick look at coaches in the top 1%, and I've got some trade stats on those, which we'll get into in a second, but thinking people who maybe do have a luxury trade or a trade they could use, who they are looking at, and some of the low trade-ins this week for coaches. This is, bear in mind, in the top 1%. So that's in about the top sort of 2K in the overall ranks. We've got one coach bringing in Max Hall, which I actually don't hate. That is about the 6th ranked forward, sort of on 5-round average, having a great run down there. And Dan Curtin also coming into one team. Haydn Young, someone like what they saw in a quarter last week.
I had him in and he's back out and he'll be back in possibly.
Well, there you go. Well, that could be the two coaches bringing in Haydn Young. So you could be one of those. Rory Laird, another patch favourite. One coach also bringing in Finn O'Sullivan, which is a little bit more out
bold
there. He has scored 80s the last 2 weeks, but yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that. And 4 people bringing in Hugh Boxall, who has found some form for the Saints. Still sort of a rookie backup sort of option, I guess, if you want. And at the trade outs, I did see 2 people trading out Lockie Blackiston. So
trading out Lockie
he's been a great servant for 3 or 4 weeks. He's done enough and he's ready to go. And also 2 coaches in the top 1% trading out Finn Callahan. So not really sure what the strategy is there, but
right.
you know, they're ranked higher than me, so I guess they know what they're doing.
We'll find out. Shout out to Lockie Blackiston as well for being my very admirable Tristan Sherry cover with an 84. Thanks, Lockie. Good stuff.
I did find some rogue trades this week too, and it stays on the Sam Docherty theme, actually. We've got 5 coaches trading him in, potentially just for one last hurrah of owning Doc in Supercoach. So
I love that.
The players that are leaving people's team for Sam Docherty to come in, we've got 1 Jason Horne-Francis, 1 Zach Johnson, 1 Zach Bailey, 1 Joe Fonte, and 1 Max Hall. So, you know, I guess if you've got enough trades left, if you've got more of a league mentality, maybe it is worth it, but...
Well, you presumably want another
one
trade
game
next
only.
week.
Yeah, you need to then trade him out next week.
Yeah, if you've got enough trades to trade him back in, maybe he'll have a massive final game, get you a bit of a spike score and move him on, but I wouldn't be doing it as much as I would love to have him in my team one more time. I wouldn't be recommending it, but...
You'd need a lot of trades left, and I don't know who could possibly have that many trades.
Well,
definitely
actually,
not me.
Patch, it's funny that you mentioned that because I did get some numbers on overall, you know, how many trades people do have left, and so of the... everyone playing Supercoach, that's more than 195,000 of us this year. 13% of those are down to 0 trades. And then you've sort of got 9% have 1 trade left, 9% have 2 trades left. So, you know, pretty a lot of people down to sort of 1 or 2 trades or fewer, and 20% have 4 or more. So those are in a pretty good position. But if you go down to the top 1%, as I said, roughly sort of top 2K, top 1,950 players, you've got 22% of those. So 1 in 5, more than 1 in 5 coaches have 0 trades. They're out completely. Another 28% on 1 and 26% have 2. So that's like well over half have.
That's 75% of coaches have 2 trades or less.
Yeah, it's not many.
That's not a lot.
But the most remarkable number out of all of this was that 11% of the top 1% have 4 trades or more. That's about 200 people. And one of those has 10 trades left. And
10?
We did
10
did
trades.
a little bit more digging
Do
on
they
him
know what a
or
rage
her.
trade is? Or
They are
probably
ranked
not.
1,438 currently. If you're out there, we'd love to hear from you. So that's pretty good. They're going well. They have 10 trades left and 3 boosts.
Oh, the dream. Good Lord.
So how they've played Supercoach very differently to everybody else, I think. But if you got to that position now, apparently they're making trades this week, so probably be down to 8 or 7, you would think, after this week. So it's not a team that's just been left and it's somehow sailed all that high.
It's
in
not a
the
ghost
ranking.
ship. It's,
Maybe they left it for a bit in the middle of the year.
Maybe,
Instead of like rage trading out of these players that we decided we didn't like for a few
Yeah.
weeks.
Maybe
they
they-
just stuck fat and now they're reaping the rewards.
Maybe
but-
they went to Europe and didn't open the Supercoach app every 5 minutes like some people, me.
Well, if you just maybe you just left the captaincy on Grundy for 6 weeks.
Yeah,
in a pretty
wow.
decent position. So very interested to hear from that person if they want to get in contact. But we do have a few questions from some people who do have trades left, presumably, or maybe some other sort of strategy type questions as well. And I think one of the interesting topics that's come up with a couple of trades is, what counts as a luxury trade at this time of year? How many trades do you have to have left to be able to maybe get rid of someone who's really not performing the way you would hope? And the two names that have come up a couple of times are Shai Bolton and Tom De Koning. So Shai Bolton's all the way down to 383K, which I think is about 420 when most people brought him in thinking he was a good
idiot
price.
would recommend bringing in Shai Bolton, thinking that was a good idea?
Could have
for the
kicked a
rest of the
match-winning goal
season?
last week, but didn't.
Yeah, I was very annoyed watching
Could
that.
have kicked a few goals last week.
Bit of yelling at the TV, but
And
anyway.
TDK's 434K. So I mean, the big question obviously is like, who could you even get for those guys? Especially if you probably only want to use one trade. But any thoughts on would if you're owners of these guys, do we just have to carry them for the rest of the year, or what position would what would be the position you'd have to be in to think I can afford to do something about it?
Well, as an owner of Shai Bolton, that's something I'm toying with this week, where it's really annoying. He's not particularly fun to be having. He's on my bench. I can loop him with someone else, with Tom McCarthy at the minute, or Tom McCarthy or Caleb Daniel or whoever else it is with DPP. So that lessens the blow a little bit if you're able to do that. If they're not on your field, then I think there could be merit in holding a player like Shai Bolton or Tom De Koning if you've got cover. De Koning's a bit trickier because he's a ruckman. We don't have ruck cover. I think if you've got more than two trades, feel free to flick and possibly go down to one trade in order to do that with De Koning. With Shai, if he's off your field, I think you're okay holding. If he's on your field, I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I want to get rid of him, but also should I? Should I spend two?
I guess
of
it
my
always depends as well, like what you were saying, what the rest of your team looks like. So
Just
I
at
feel
that
like your
price,
team's
like-
pretty set, but yeah, at that price, if
know
you
what you-
downgraded him, if they were going to be on the bench anyway, and then you had enough trades to upgrade somewhere else in your
You
field.
need to have probably 4 trades left to be able to
Yeah.
use 2 to turn him into someone decent, which
Yeah.
not many people are in that position. What about TDK though, Chloe? Who, if he's in ruck, there's really nowhere to go. Maybe Jordan Sweet, if you think he can keep up that kind of form. He's around the 400K mark, but
Yeah.
there's not many other options there. But if he's in flex, maybe it does give you a few more, directions you can go in.
I think flex definitely opens up some more opportunities, but Jordan Sweet probably would be the one if you're willing to go there. I mean, he at least has a number one ruck
Yeah.
role to his own, so I guess he's reaping the rewards of that actual ruck position and the points that it can bring you, whereas at the moment Tom De Koning isn't and probably won't. I mean, potentially Harry Mackay comes back in this week, so not really quite sure what would happen with his role if that was to occur, but I don't really necessarily see Pittonet losing that number one
Pitto's
ruck
actually been
position.
going
So,
all right, hasn't he?
yeah, so
Yeah.
I think if you've got the trades, I probably agree with you, Patch. If you can flick him, I probably would.
Yeah.
I mean, his scores are not coming back, are they?
Oh no, they're gone. They're long gone.
Yeah.
So the annoying thing with both of them is they're still match winners, and you could they could both come out this week. and
Shai
score
especially,
120.
like if you trade him, like he's going to score 140 one week completely out of nowhere.
So no, it won't be a matchup against Richmond or an easy matchup. It'll be just a match winning game where he goes into the middle in the last quarter and wins it off his own boot. So that is then also the problem. Whereas if you trade him to like a Max Hall and you don't have a lot of cash, Hall might fall off a cliff despite their really good run, and Bolton might go on a tear. So
I guess with that as well, it's like he plays for Fremantle and it's great they got that win on the weekend, but they're probably still in the position where they need to keep trying to win every single game, whereas, someone like a Max Hall or even a Tom De Koning, not in the same position. So if you were going to back someone in, I guess he's the one who probably needs to keep producing those match-winning performances.
Yeah, of the two, I think I'd probably trade TDK first.
Yeah,
'Cause
agreed.
you don't know what Shai could do on a given week. And we'll actually, with some of the other questions that have come in, there's a few names around that sort of mid-400s range which will come up, which, especially if TDK's in flex, might be people you could look at. Matt's asking, do you trade or hold Rozee? I guess, if he plays this week, obviously you hold him. If he misses again, would you trade him? Matt's got 2 trades left. I mean, he can move him to someone pretty good, like a Lockie Ash, but I think with only 2 trades left, I think you're still holding, aren't you?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, that was an easy one. We'll go through most of these pretty quickly, I think. Another question about luxury trade options for Whitfield. So Lockie Whitfield is down to around the 450K mark. So he's one of these guys that you could just about get for De Koning in flex. That'd be a pretty good move if you've got, say, 20K in the bank. But question, would you trade out Callum Mills, who's nearly, he's just over the 400k mark, I think now, or Colby McKercher, who's now worth more than Whitfield? One or either of those guys, if you had the trades, a straight swap to Lachie Whitfield, does that sound like a good move?
If you've got 3 trades or more, maybe. I mean, I think there's every chance they'll score the same on their own home anyway. So I'd probably use the luxury trade elsewhere on a Lachie Neale or someone else who's underperforming. McKercher had a bad game on the weekend, but will bounce back. Mills is what we expected him.
I think they're all kind of going 50, 100, 50, 100.
And Whitfield this week has, I think Fantasy Freako tweeted just before we came into the studio that James Jordan has tagged Lachie Whitfield the last 4 games.
Yeah.
The last 4 battles of the bridge. So, yeah, maybe at least wait one more week and see where you're at next week. He's probably not going to get too much more expensive. Another guy in that sort of mid-400s range, Riley Thilthorpe, is 462k. Someone asking thoughts on him as a pod. I mean, he's your classic key forward. He's got a 5-round average of 93, and that's scores of 61, 129, 46, 149, 82. So he's probably going to get similar for the run home, 1 or 2 really big spike games, but I think I'd prefer, we've got his name further down the list. I think he's somewhere. Matt Kennedy's 452, but he's, I know Chloe's a big fan, more likely to give you sort of 90s, 80s at least on a poor game. We did have that one shocker a couple of weeks ago, but I'd probably prefer that rather than a real roller coaster like Thilthorpe. But obviously the Crows are going pretty well. Any love for him?
I think especially if you already have a few of the other sort of underperforming forwards, probably, yes, it would be great if your week could be saved by one of those 149 sort of spike scores. But at the same time, if you're already having the Chad Warners of the world having a bit of an off day and Thilthorpe drops a 60, it's probably not ideal. So, yeah, I would probably, at that price point, aim for someone with a bit more consistency. But, I can see why you would go there, especially if you're trying to win head-to-head league matchups. But I would say I would probably pass on him.
Well, the other one that someone's asked here too, which sort of similar kind of question, asking about flex, if you sort of got that 440k to spend, Jordan Sweet or Jeremy Cameron, that would leave 2 trades. So I think if you've got 2 trades left, I'd be happy to go ahead and pull the trigger. But Cameron's another one I was looking at, similar price to, say, a Matt Kennedy type. And, I've still got Horn Francis, so I'll be looking to move him on this week with one of my 2 remaining trades. I think, are you a Jezza owner?
I am a Jezza owner. I'm on the roller coaster. I've had the up, I've had the down.
Yeah.
I had an up
what
on the weekend.
What do you think of him? I suppose it's similar to the Thilthorpe, but probably the thing I like about Jezza is Geelong's run.
Yes.
So they play North this week at Marvel, then Port Adelaide, but that's at home in Geelong, then Essendon in Geelong, which...
Won't be watching that one.
Sydney at the SCG is not a great matchup potentially, but then Richmond at the G to finish the season. I mean, the only worry is Geelong. Do they rest some of these guys? Yeah. But, I mean, they've got the pre-finals bye, so probably wouldn't rest him in the last round.
He's in the Coleman race, which I think helps keep him in the game a bit longer. But, there is that risk that he gets subbed out or rested, which Thilthorpe won't have. But I don't know. I'm not trying to factor that in because it just gets too complicated too quickly. But no, I really like Jez's run home. He will drop at least 1 terrible score. And it could be against like an Essendon for all we know. But
I mean, the best 22, surely that's what it's for, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If you've got him and Sam Darcy and Shai Bolton and, Chad Warner drops a bad week, then you're going to have a bad time. But also, you've got half of them anyway. So I don't know, add to the roller coaster? I don't know. It's hard to say generally, but I think he's got a great run home and could go really, really big.
Yeah, I think I like him, but Kennedy was the other one I definitely had in my sights. But I don't know if you're the most unbiased person to ask. Chloe is a massive Matt Kennedy fan, but are you looking? I know you've probably 2 or 3 other rounds this year.
I've finally done it with my last trade.
There you go.
I was a bit stressed over the weekend because he did perform very well, and I thought I'd done all this maths to think if I just hold Horn Francis and then swap him to Kennedy, I thought, his break even was like 150. I thought, this will be fine. And then his score just kept going up and up. It was a bit shaky, but I got there with about 10k to spare. I'm not proud of it, but yes, I'm down to 0 trades. And after all this time, this whole year, he's my final purchase. So, I just think he has that consistency. And, I mean, for me personally, I've regretted not having him all year. So, may as well just get him in now and sail off into the sunset with him in my side. So
his CBAs have been a bit down the last couple of weeks, and they really dropped 2 weeks ago when he scored 20 or something, which was sort of crazy. But then last week they were up a little bit, not heaps, and then he's still able to score sort of 120. And the Bulldogs in their last 5 games, they play Essendon this week. So
Won't be watching that one either.
who knows what will happen there. Then the Giants is obviously not an easy game, but that's at Marvel. Then they've got the D's, West Coast at Marvel.
Lots
and
of
finish
Marvel.
with Freo also at Marvel. So I'd have to check what his scores are like at Marvel, but obviously the Dogs generally play a bit better there. So that's not a bad run for him either. So don't mind him at 452K. That's nearly it for questions. Noah asking, he's got 3 trades left. Would you use 2 of them to upgrade Tom McCarthy if you're playing him on field as one of your sort of best 22 to go down to 1?
I would wait one more week.
Yeah.
I'd wait, especially if you're looking at league. See your finals matchup, see what you can do there. I'd wait one more week. If you can get him to Whitfield next week, that's huge.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, don't mind that. And last question, Oliver asked, should I do this trade? And it was Tom McCarthy, as we just spoke about, Angus Clark and Harry Rowston. So just sort of cashing in everybody who's got some money on their head for Liam McMahon, Ben Jepson, so a couple of 99K guys, and that leaves him just enough money to get Errol Goulden and down to 2 trades. So it's basically all those guys for Errol Goulden.
And that would be his 23rd primo.
Yeah, so I guess that factors in
I like
as
the
well.
idea of boosting in this economy is incredible.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even picked up on that. You're right.
That's phenomenal. I like the idea of doing an upgrade. Goulden might not be the one I'd pick.
I did look around that price range though, and there's not a whole lot, to be honest.
But also you can hold the cash because you've still got 2 trades left. So holding the cash isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, like you get Whitfield and leave 100K in the bank.
The guy I really wanted Spruik this week, and I've really looked at as a Shai Bolton upgrade, is Jack Steele. We've spoken about St Kilda's
I'm
run
here
home.
for this. Yeah.
Sinclair's got a great chance to. He's great value if you don't have him. I think
True. He's under,
as Phantom's
well under
pointed out,
500K.
is the number 1 option this week. Nazai Wangan Miller is incredible, but we've established you can't get there. Jack Steele, 532K. Has a 3-round average of 117. I wouldn't back him in to keep that up for a whole season, but for 5 weeks with a run of Melbourne, North Melbourne, Richmond, Essendon and GWS, I'm really closely looking at him this week.
And how much is he?
$532,000 dues.
I was looking at him before when we were discussing who we wanted to pick for our captains this week because it didn't quite work out for my captain recommendation last week, but it still stands that Melbourne usually give up the most points to midfielders. So there is always that in terms of this week to keep in mind. But I think ongoing he has been in some good form.
They sort of have this thing going of where they might send a random tagger to someone like a Noah Anderson or Nick Dacos. We've seen, they give Ed Langdon or Clary a tagging job or something like that. But if you're going to tag anybody at the Saints, it's probably not going to be Jack Steele, is it?
No.
So I think you're safe there. But that leads us nicely into captains for round 20. And with limited trades, trying to find ways to get edge against your opponent. Captains obviously becomes super important. And there's some really good options this week. So it was really hard to narrow it down to, we're talking about top 3. And obviously you can only go with 2 if we're using the VC loop. So who did you settle on, Chloe?
Well, my number 1 captain option for this week was Caleb Sarong versus the Eagles. So they are the second easiest matchups for mids. And then these are some of the recent scores that some mids have put up against the Eagles. So we've got Hopper with a 139, Taranto 136, Butters 154, Wines 143, Callahan 144, and Dacos 131. So if Sarong can get near any of those, he'll definitely take it. Obviously, Brayshaw could be a good option too, but I'll back in Sarong as the form player. And then my second best captain option for this week, Zach Butters in the showdown. He's scored a ton in all of his last 3 against the Crows, so I would back him in to produce another good score this week. And then at number 3, Max Gawn versus the Saints. So he had scored a 180 in his second most recent game in 2024 against the Saints, and he's seemed to finally be able to find a bit of Supercoach form again after a few lower scoring weeks. So I would back him in as
20
a good captain
points
option.
at halftime last week.
Yes.
Thumbs
Against
up.
Pito though.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was actually
second half was
playing
amazing.
against
But
the double rucks and then 108 points or so in the second half. So he found some form then, as you say. And I was looking up some numbers on him, sort of in terms of those difficulty of matchups. St Kilda sort of mid-table in terms of rucks, but just in the last few weeks, these are some of the ruck scores against Rowan Marshall. Grundy 154, Lloyd Meek scored 140. They played the Dockers and Darcy and Jackson both turned up, and Darcy Cameron scored 156 against them. So
is this since Max Heath has come in as well? So maybe sharing the
well,
load
that's
a bit
the last 2 weeks, so that might have affected things as well. So Yeah, so some pretty good ruck numbers there against the Saints. So, I mean, the other thing this week is the timing of the games. There's some weird ones. Like Gawn plays on Sunday.
Weird schedule, so that doesn't sound
virtually
like
at the same
them.
time as the Collingwood-Richmond game. So if you're interested in Nick Dacos, which I am definitely. So I have Gawn number 3 on my list. Nick Dacos number 2. We went and watched him last weekend live, and he was incredible, taking kick-ins at one end and then kicking goals virtually at the other. 40-plus disposals, and the Dockers sort of tried a few things to, but he was moving around everywhere and just doing whatever he liked. Richmond, interestingly, have used Jack Ross in the last couple of weeks. He went on to Harley Reid after half-time and sort of shut him down
Did a good job there,
at the weekend, so he's an option that maybe goes to Dacos. But, we know how good he is. He scored 147 last time they played the Tigers, 5-round average of 134, maybe little 3 more Brownlow votes in the back of his mind. So, I think he's a great option on the Sunday. But I think we have to VC Marcus Bontempelli, the game that Patch will not be watching on Friday night. And again, we have 2 sort of games happening concurrently on the Friday.
No, we love that.
So Grundy's also playing on the Friday night, which makes it a bit awkward.
Yeah.
He's got a matchup against Briggs, who's, he should score okay. And I mean, obviously Grundy's just in insane form. But I think, the Bont against the Bombers and, we're talking about scores against, over the season, Essendon's sort of a middle of the table matchup for midfielders. But in the last 2 weeks only, they've given up 150 to Tom Green, 135 to Tim Taranto, and then look all over the field. Nang scored 132. Tyler Young scored 110. So there's a lot of players scoring points against Essendon. And Essendon's midfield last week, Zach Merritt was back in there, the number 1 CBA player, but then second was Dylan Shield. Sam Durham, he's a good hard worker who maybe can put on a bit of defensive pressure. Then Jade Gresham got a lot of centre bounce action. Andrew McGrath was in there. And Archie Perkins, who I heard you guys mentioning on the pod.
Oh, yes, I owe you an apology about Archie Perkins because he, 1, outscored the Archie I recommended instead, and 2, I also didn't realise he was 150k.
Yeah,
I just assumed he was mid, late
he's
300s, so I do owe you an apology for that.
So anyway, point being, if you've got Bailey Dale or Tim English, they could also score really big. So
Sam Darcy.
That's right.
Could kick 12.
For a VC
Matt
shout,
Kennedy.
I think.
Honestly, Edrich, if you've got a Bulldog, I reckon you should VC him. Ignore the Thursday night game and just VC whatever Bulldog you've got.
Yep, I like that. They're my top 3. Who do you like, Patch?
I'm going to go a little bit rogue because I haven't really done any preparation. So these are if you feel a little bit spicy and want to do something a little bit crazy. Number 1 is somebody, I was going to talk about the trade-ins, but I forgot. Haydn Young scored 1.6 points per minute on his first game back.
Nice.
Did start as a sub, so we only scored the 55, but that 55 was in a bit over a quarter against the Magpies. He's got the Eagles this week. I imagine they'll let him loose in the midfield for a full game. 1.6 points per minute for a full game is a lot of points, so he's a very rogue option there.
And how many you got for that kick inside 50 to Jackson?
He would have, there was a lot of scaling involved in that points per minute.
But just that was just so good. He deserved every point there because that was that won the game for him basically.
Yeah, and they look like a different side with him on the field as well. So I think they'll get the ball in his hands there. Jeremy Cameron as a shout against North Melbourne. I'm not sure Toby Pink and Griffin Logue will be doing too much to stop him if he's in the mood. And the number 1 is not quite rogue, but Nazar Wanganeen Miller against Melbourne playing. He's going all right. He's playing. He's fine. He's a pretty good footballer,
Decent,
I guess. Playing full-time midfield against the Ds. We've spoken about the Ds giving up a lot of points to midfielders. If he plays off halfback, he'd still score 1 million points anyway. So
as a fullback,
he's currently my captain ahead of Dacos, but I might chicken out.
The Jack Ross factor. Don't mind that at all. So that's a wrap this week. Thank you, Patch. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Remember to join myself and Matt Forrest on the live team show, 6:30 p.m. on Thursdays. Now you get all the teams, obviously, as they happen, and some late trade advice. And we do have to give Foz a shout-out. He did mention Jordan Sweet last week as a cheaper sort of ruck trade possibility if you were looking that way. So, it deserves a pat on the back for that one. I think about 30 people or something traded him in, so they would have had a very, very enjoyable weekend. But hopefully we'll catch you then. Otherwise, happy trading, and we'll talk again soon.